Welcome to Making a Runner. I'm your host Nick, a biokineticist, running coach, and long-distance runner based right here in South Africa. Running has shaped so much of who I am. It's what brought me behind this mic. Through this show, I get to share what I've learned, connect with fellow runners, and grow a community that's as passionate about the sport as I am. This podcast is for anyone who loves to run or is just getting started. Whether you're training for your first 10K, chasing a marathon PB, or simply running to clear your head after work. I chat with experts, elite athletes, and everyday legends who share practical insights, training advice, and real stories from the road or trail, all to help you grow as a runner and get the most out of your journey. Because let's be honest, although running isn't always easy, it's always worth it. Every runner has a story, and this is how runners are made. George Kusche, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast, bud. How are you doing?
Thanks, Nick. It's good to be back. Doing well, getting back into the swing of things. No complaints on my side.
Good to hear, man. I'm sure life has changed just a little bit since last time we chatted. I think we had a conversation probably about 6 weeks prior to Comrades. And of course, Comrades went exactly how you had planned it to go on to. I know you gave me a very analytical answer when I asked you what you plan on doing on race day, but I would assume that you ran your race exactly as you planned it to.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of execution, I did what I planned on doing.
Brilliant, bud. And life itself nowadays, is it a little bit different walking around as the Comrades champion? Uprun record holder, the fastest average time over Comrades ever achieved?
I'm mindful as to what's a permanent change and what's a temporary change. Life has changed a bit, but the basics still stay the same. I still need to do my job and train hard, spend time with family. So I'd say life hasn't changed much, I'm obviously happy with the result, and maybe I'll get some better support going forward in terms of my running career as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everyone wants, but especially after you can showcase the world essentially what you're capable of. I'm sure ears perk up and all of a sudden people are watching. Not that they weren't watching before, but I think having run the way that you ran and sort of calling it on your side that you were confident that you were going to do this and executing on the day. As we know, the day itself can go so many ways. And I know that on the TV and on paper, it looks like you had a brilliant race. But I also know that you would have gone through many, many demons on the day. Can we briefly, before moving on from Comrades, I'm sure you're tired of talking about it and you've been interviewed plenty of time over it. Can you just tell me what was the hardest part of the day for you?
Yeah, look, it's an 85 or an 86 kilometer race, and it's almost exclusively uphill the first half. So the whole race, every part of it has a challenging aspect to it. The start is tough mentally, because you obviously know how far you still have to go, and there are many people still in the group, the leading pack. So that's nerve-wracking, and you're nervous as to how your body will respond. So the start is difficult because you're nervous and you need to stay calm. And then you get the kind of middle part where you go up, Drummond, sort of almost halfway. You got some tough hills there, but you still need to stay patient. I'd say that's, manageable. By then your nerves have settled in, and you're looking, forward to the rest of the race. And then I made my move, I'd say, around about halfway. So I dropped a 5K, like a pretty hard 5K effort in there. And then after that, it's tough because now you've done what you had to do. Now you're waiting for your body to respond to what you did. And that's nerve-wracking again because you don't know how your body will respond. It's not like you do a Comrades Marathon in training every week. And then with about 30 kilometers to go, that's when you start feeling really pain. And so with 30 kilometers for me to go, I could feel my legs slowly, starting to tire. And with about 20 kilometers to go, I got a cramp in my left calf. And that was very painful because every time I stepped on it, it was kind of like a stinging pain. But by then, the writing's on the wall. There's not much tactics left to do. That's just literally running as hard as you can. So the hardest part in this race, I'd say it was a distributed effort. Hardest part probably the last 20 kilometers because of the cramp and the tired legs. But overall, still a better feeling than I had last year, at least.
Yeah, nice progression from the previous year. And I totally concur with you in terms of, it's very hard to pinpoint one particular point of a race that is so long, that is so demanding in so many different ways. Obviously, cramping, I think, is something that many people can relate to. Cramping while still trying to hold your 3.5 minute kilometer pace, that's a different story, I think, to what most people can manage. And I also just want to ask you, for me, one of my darkest moments was just poly shorts. It's one of those that is coming your way. There's really not much that you can do. It's a brutal, brutal hill, both from a steepness perspective, from a length perspective. It comes at 78 kilometers. It's just brutal all around. How did you feel going into poly shorts? And then how did you sort of mentally coach yourself to get through poly shorts, knowing that, the race really is won or lost at that point? Once you get into Maritzburg, you're in Maritzburg, but poly shorts is such a mental achievement. And when you're struggling going into it, what sort of was going through your mind at that stage?
Yeah, so I studied the hills quite extensively before the Comrades. So I knew exactly when we're going to be hitting hills, and I knew exactly how long the hills were. So going into polys, I knew exactly how long it was, which I'm grateful for, because then you know how to distribute your effort. But when I was at the base of polys, I heard the guy on the motorcycle next to me saying, he's ahead now, but let's see how he responds on this hill. And so when I heard that, I kind of thought, how close are they? Because surely if he says that, they should be pretty close to me. So I wasn't sure how far back the leading bunch or the chasing pack were. And so when I went up polys, I kind of decided I'm just going to put my head down and not worry about anyone catching me. I'm just going to run this hill as hard as I possibly can. And so, I put my head down and I pushed through. It was tough. Not aerobically tough, but by that point, your body is extremely tired. And so I pushed as hard as I can up that, let's say, 2 kilometer hill. And when I got to the top, I told myself, it's downhill from here. I just need to keep on pushing as hard as I can. But at no point did I know how far back the chasing pack were. So I obviously I didn't feel any happy emotions. I was still nervous to get caught.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I think if there's something that I can say that I might make you smile a little bit is when I was in my pits going up poly shorts, which as I said was probably the toughest part. It was just, I even thought maybe I should walk here, but then I get there and I tried to take a little bit of I even contemplated walking. Everything wanted to cramp up. So I was like, okay, no, I'm just going to have to grind my way up. And there was a bunch of people walking down. And I said to them, I was like, in my deliria, because at that stage, you're not really thinking too much about anything else. And I just saw them and I was like, did George win? Like, I don't even know why I said, did George win? I hadn't asked anyone else the whole day. And you must have just sort of finished. And the guys were like, yeah, Kush won. And I was like, hearing those words from those people, strangers, to me, I got so pumped. And it was the thing that got me to the top of poly shorts, knowing that you had won the Comrades. It motivated me so much. So without even knowing it, you got me through one of the darkest moments on race day. So I have to say thank you. But obviously the rest, as they say, is history. And as I sort of alluded to at the start of the podcast, life, I'm sure, has changed a little for you since then. I mean, I'm sure you weren't getting invited to go wave the South African flag at the Bok Games prior to winning Comrades and these types of things. So if there are a couple of changes in your life at this stage that you're willing to sort of share with us, what would you say is the things that have changed the most in the last 5 weeks since winning Comrades?
I think one thing that comes to mind is when I train, say at Alce de Villiers, I always train there at least once a week when I do my intervals. You know, I've always been very anonymous. I just park at the grass, do my intervals, and get into the car and go home. But now, obviously, the people there are also athletically inclined. They're running and jogging and playing soccer. So more people recognize me. So I have to stop for the odd photo too, which is not the end of the world. And I'm grateful for the support. So that's something that's changed. I'm not sure if that's a permanent change, but I guess for the next month or so, it'll be present. Yeah, and then I'd say, you know, you have people treat you a bit differently, which I find odd because I don't consider, you know, I'm not a different person just because I won a race. I'd say I'm a different person because of the work I had to put in to get to the race. But yeah, those are the two changes, I'd say.
That's that's so true. You're a different person because of the work you put in. You're not a different person because of the result. And I guess that also translates to, you know, being process oriented rather than being outcome orientated, which is also something that you were talking about to me in the previous podcast. And another thing that obviously changed since um, Comrades is that you launched your running coaching, essentially. You'll go run more. Tell me a little bit more about that. I know obviously everyone knows you're self-coached and that you've been sort of working through the training on your own, learning from your very own experiences and adjusting and tweaking. You've already mentioned on this particular episode how studious you are, and you know, you really studied the course, you knew the hills, you knew when they were coming, you knew the length of it. But you know, to go win the Comrades and then a couple of weeks later release your own coaching platform, was that something that sort of was in the pipeline that you had planned? Talk me a little bit about that, and you know, give yourself a little bit of a plug here if people want to work with you. How does that all work?
Yeah, so I'm obviously very passionate about the sport. And so the question I ask myself is how can I be more involved in the sport, not just as an athlete, because being an athlete obviously only takes you that far in terms of involvement in the sport. So the natural progression for me was to think about coaching. Now, when I thought about coaching, I looked at various platforms that can be used to assist your coaching. And a platform that comes to mind is Training Peaks. And so I looked at Training Peaks and it looks very good. But I thought to myself, you know, why can't we just build our own platform so that we could own it and we can deploy features like we want to, and we don't obviously lose that percentage of revenue that goes to the third-party platform. And so a friend and I started developing this platform, and we're currently in the testing stages where we have a couple of test athletes that I coach. And you know, based on their feedback, we're making changes as we go. But so far, it works extremely well. But our long-term vision of this platform is sort of for it to become a marketplace for coaches and athletes to find each other. So it won't just be me coaching on this platform. We'll be opening it up for any coach and any athlete to sign up. So we'll have a coaching portal and an athlete portal. Sure. And so any coach, like Training Peaks, any coach can sign up and charge a fee, whatever that coach decides to charge. And we'll have athletes sign up, and then an athlete can apply to be coached by a coach, and the coach can accept or decline based on his or her appetite. So we think it'll be a huge success. It'll obviously make running a bit more accessible, coaching as well. So we'll be launching it, you know, fully very soon. and we're excited. For now, I'm going to be the only coach on this platform. But after a while, as I said, we're going to open it up. And then the idea is, if you take a high school coach, the high school coach can sign up. It can accept, he or she can accept all the athletes of that high school. And then it's a way to keep track of training, what they're doing, what they're planning on doing, what they actually did. Parents can log in and see what they did, or any person interested, and that is also allowed, obviously, to see the training and the coaching. So it's an all-round, a good tool, and we're excited to launch it.
Very, very exciting. And I think it sounds like you got a really good idea behind what you're doing it for and your why. And it's exciting to hear how it's going to be more than just, your coaching app. It's an app for other coaches and athletes to find themselves onto, which, I think, as you mentioned there, Training Peaks, there's obviously a few other apps that offer something similar, but I think because you're on the ground actually working on the development of it and are able to adjust it, and as you said, add the things that you want to add and take the things away that you don't think quite work, really make it something quite flexible and something that can have the potential for huge success. So I wish you all the best with it. Makes me quite excited. I'd like to give it a try. But on your side then, does that mean that you're going to be spending a little bit less time doing the current work that you're doing, working as a data scientist, or are you still going to try and juggle the ball as the win of Comrades sort of solidified a couple of more endorsement deals that allows you to take that step closer to being a full-time runner?
Yeah, so I'm still playing it on field. So at the moment, I'm very happy in my current role, and the company I work for is extremely supportive as well. So I'm in no rush to move away from that. So I guess I'll play it by ear. I'll look at the deals that come in, or the potential deals that come in. I do love running. I wouldn't mind running full time and coaching, to supplement my running. But on the other side, I am happy in my current role. So I haven't made a decision yet. But in the next 5 months before 2027, I'll be coming to a firm decision.
Sure. I find that so interesting, George, because I mean, the regular elite runner, so to speak, runner that runs and all they do is run, it's already hard enough even just to get them to sit down and have a conversation with them on a podcast like this. Never mind that if I had to imagine that same person working a full-time job somewhere else, trying to develop a coaching app and coaching their own athletes, and still trying to run full-time and looking to win Comrades year on and year off, it's a strange thing to hear coming from you. And I think it's quite exciting that you feel like you can handle and manage all of it. And at the same time, it just shows me your passion for running. That it's not so self-centered. It's not all about just you and what you can achieve with the sport. It's also about how much you can give back. And, especially through this coaching sort of journey that you're now taking, I'm really excited to see how that develops.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. As you mentioned, if it weren't for running, I would not have been such a happy, positive person, because I believe running is such a positive force in my life. So it would be great if I can at least attempt to share this with younger people. I wish someone would have shared it with me when I was younger. So I'll try my best, but we'll see where this platform goes. I'm excited so far, and as soon as we launch, definitely I'll have you try it out and see if you can identify any features you would like to add.
That would be great, bud. And in terms of, we talked a little bit about where your journey has taken you since winning Comrades. Of course, running has been a little bit on the back burn whilst you're trying to recover from the incredible effort that you put in. I know we were chatting a little bit off air about what other athletes are doing and how some people are back to training full time and, putting in insane amount of mileages and even racing. And, we sort of chatted about how that just shows that perhaps at Comrades you weren't putting in 100% of yourself, and you can expect yourself to still be recovering at this stage if you did give absolutely everything to that race. So I'm interested to hear about your running journey since Comrades, your training, your recovery, what you sort of been following, and how your body has been recovering, and where you're currently at.
Yes, so if you want to perform at the highest level in certain periods of the year, you can't be training as hard as possible year round. There needs to be a dedicated period of complete rest and relaxation, both mentally and physically. So to me, it just makes sense to do this after Comrades. It's the A race, the most important race of the year. So there just simply isn't any point for me in trying to push training directly after Comrades. To me, I find the greatest benefit lies in taking it easy, forgetting about running for 2 weeks and then slowly incorporating it back into my life. Because then I can see myself performing, from August to next year's Comrades, instead of trying to maintain this moderate effort and always being overtrained. So I prefer taking it easy after Comrades. Obviously, each athlete can do as he or she pleases. But I think it's good, to take a break sometimes, and just take it easy.
Yeah, for sure. But from a coaching side of things, like your coaching brain now, is there certain metrics that you're looking over, and are those metrics deciding whether you're ready or prepared to go back yet or not quite there yet? I know you're a data guy, so there'll certainly be something specific that you're looking at over and above just the feeling, or is it all just about how you feel and whether you're prepared for it yet or not?
Yeah, so I do track, like my resting heart rate and my HRV, and my sleep quality and my respiration rates. But just because these metrics have stabilized doesn't mean you're ready necessarily. And so, yeah, the most important thing I use to determine if I'm recovered is how I feel. And the reason for that is obviously your central nervous system needs a huge recovery period after such a momentous effort. And so I could feel, up until this point, I'm still not 100%. I'm not ready to do hard workouts yet. My metrics have stabilized. My resting heart rate's back to where it was before Comrades, and my HRV is good. But still, I'm not quite ready yet, and that's fine. I'll be ready, soon, maybe in August, to start doing hard workouts again, and then I'll gain my fitness back, and I'll continue to build, and life will go on. And so, yeah, I think the most important thing to keep in mind now is I would rather be too rested than not rested at all.
Yeah, I guess it's a fine line, right? Because you would feel like perhaps if you don't go back too quickly or in good enough time, the amount of fitness that you lose is going to take you months to gain back, and even just that sharpness, it takes a while for your legs to start feel like your legs again. And Comrades isn't that long ago, so it's a constant reminder of what it used to feel like versus what it currently feels like. Other than your resting heart rate and your HRV and your sleep quality and all of these things, is there been other elements that in getting back into running you sort of felt like it's not quite there yet? Maybe like your legs or the calf that you ran through cramp for the last 20 kilometers of Comrades. Is there anything that's physically currently still reminding you that you're not quite there yet, or is it more just the feeling and your energy levels and the actual data?
Yeah, if I I picked up the pace yesterday in a run, and I could feel my legs were heavy. So yeah, not quite ready. But if I compare my experience now with my experience after 2025 Comrades, 2025 Comrades, I started too soon, and I got ITB issues, and I only started training in late September. So I mean, that's still, call it 2 months from now. And I did barely nothing. I didn't do anything in that time period when my knee was hurting. And so technically I lost a lot of fitness, but I gained it back, and life went on. I don't think resting is as bad as people make it out to be. I think much more athletes suffer from not resting enough than resting too much. So just from last year's experience, I'm already jogging again, which is a much better start post Comrades than last year's experience.
And that's sort of where you're at. You're just trying to run, taking the runs quite gentle. You had a little bit of a pickup yesterday, but you're not doing any particular structured workouts. You're not doing any massive long runs. You're just sort of running on feel at the stage. Whatever you feel your body can handle, you're sort of giving it to it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I do most of what I do at any time in the year is easy running. So I am only easy running now, but it's not too far removed from what I do anyways. But yeah, I don't see a point in trying to push long runs now or do workouts. There's a time and a place for that. But now I'm focusing on, just maintaining aerobic conditioning by running easy. And then I'm focusing on strength. I'm doing 3 strength workouts a week. And I'm cross-training. I'm eating, clean and healthy. So all these things form the basis of your training going forward. And it's obviously tough to start with it because it's a new stimulus. So especially the cross-training and the strength work. When you start doing that, you obviously develop lots of fatigue and soreness. And this is the perfect time to start doing that because I can afford to be sore. If you compare that with, close to a bigger race where you don't want to be very sore or introduce new stimulus to your training. So I'm focusing on the basis, and then going forward, I'll slowly start introducing specific work, and then I'll peak for a race probably in October.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that race just now, but it is quite interesting in terms of how your body is responding right now and how you're sort of allowing yourself the time to get back into it. I really love the fact that you are focusing on elements that you don't often get the time to focus on when you are pushing 250 kilometers of running a week. And I think there's something to be learned there from you for the regular runner. Obviously regular runner is not putting the amount of mileage that you're putting, but from a time perspective, right now, I think what most people struggle with is the fact that they have all this time and they usually fill that time with running. And without the running, they're like, well, what am I meant to do? Well, you've just answered that question. You can do the cross training. You can actually spend your focus on doing the strength work that you always complain you don't have enough time to do, or focus on trying to get your nutrition right. And there's always different ways to channel that energy and channel that focus. It doesn't mean that because you're not running right now, you can't set yourself up for successful running in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And if you really have too much time, then go read a book and develop, some thoughts behind why you're doing what you're doing, because that's very powerful and that'll take you through to next year's Comrades. If you read a good book, now to me that's Stoner by John Williams. I read it before last year's Comrades and I'm reading it again now. And that book is a good reminder for me, why I'm running. And so I think it's important, especially now when you're not doing peak mileage, get your mind straight, get a coherent philosophy as to why you're doing what you're doing.
Stoner by John Williams, certainly one that I'm gonna search and get for myself as well. Highly recommend it then. George, where is your training taking you now? I know you mentioned that you would like to peak for a race in October, but let's talk about it from a running and coaching perspective. If a runner came to you now and said, okay, George, I want to run Comrades next year. And I say Comrades next year because in our previous conversation, you mentioned how you want to make Comrades part of your long-term success strategy and sort of progressing and peaking for Comrades year on and year off for as long as your body can handle that. So that's why I'm giving that as a particular example. Not that I suggest that everybody should now be signing up for Comrades next year, although it does seem like the whole world is going to be trying to do that. What would you say to them? Take out the fact that maybe this person is or isn't recovering from previous Comrades, maybe they want to run their first Comrades, what would the focus be on this half of this year prior to setting them up for a successful next year, if we had to take into account your philosophy of training?
Yeah, I'd say now is the perfect time to build consistency and to build volume. Um, I think it's very easy to go on Strava and look at the fancy workouts that other people are doing. But intensity only works in the short term. In the long term, what's going to make you a better runner is, boring consistency and building your volume. I hear a lot of social runners saying, quality over quantity. Now, obviously, there is some truth to that, but it's misleading. I think if you can build the amounts of volume that your body can handle over a long period of time, you'll be a much better athlete in a year or two than trying to do these fancy hard workouts. So I'd say focus on building a routine that's sustainable, and then over time see if that routine has any space for building a bit more volume. But don't fall into the trap of hard workouts and fancy things. You should be focusing on consistency mainly.
Yeah, I think we know consistency is the name of the game. There isn't one specific fancy workout that you can do that is going to guarantee success next year. If you can't get consistent with doing the monotony of the training, which so many runners struggle with. And for yourself, Bud, you mentioned October. What is the plan? Obviously, I want to chat to you about 2027 Comrades, what you feel needs to change, what you feel worked. Is there certain elements that you didn't consider previously that now you're going to consider because of your experience of 2025 down run? But before we get there, what is your immediate plan in terms of your running, and what do you foresee in terms of your goals?
Yeah, I think an aspect I can definitely work on is my downhill durability, which is very specific to next year's Comrades. Obviously, the two races are vastly different in terms of physical requirements. The up run suits aerobic capacity or prefers a higher aerobic capacity if you want to achieve a good position, whereas the downhill favors absolute durability. And so I think I've got lots of room to improve in terms of my specific downhill durability. But that's something I'll work on closer to Comrades. So that'll probably from April 2027. I'll start focusing exclusively on that. For now, I'm going to be training as a marathoner, probably from now up until February next year, or March. And so I'll be doing some shorter workouts, or shorter, I mean like marathon-specific workouts, sharpening up a bit, and really see if I can push my marathon personal best into, maybe the sub 2:10s.
That would be super interesting to see. And have you earmarked a couple of races that you would like to do yet, or you're not 100% sure of that?
Yeah, I entered into Amsterdam Marathon, which is October 18th. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I tried getting into some local 10K races to prepare, but they've been sold out and they weren't willing to accommodate me. So I'm trying to find a couple of good, 10Ks and 21s. I've entered Old Eds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be doing Old Eds. I think that's August 9th. So not too far away, but not planning on running very fast by then, but just starting to get into some solid effort. And then, yeah, I'll be targeting a couple of 10Ks, just get some speed work in, and then hopefully run quite well at Amsterdam.
Wow, George, that sounds interesting to me, that a race organizer on the phone with the Comrades champion wouldn't open up a single single entry just for you to go and run their particular 10K. That sounds a little bit strange to me, but I hope that you manage to get into a couple of them so that you can actually test that speed. It would be nice to see you perform over all those distances. I'm sure with your background coming from NCAA and those types of shorter, I mean, obviously a lot shorter than that as well. But I'm really excited to see how you perform at Amsterdam. I think obviously you've built a massive aerobic base. Amsterdam is a fast course, good time of year in terms of weather conditions as well. And I'm sure that obviously, given your last marathon performance, where it wasn't through not a massive headwind, but a slight bit of a headwind and their timing issues that they had, it would be good to see how close you can get to that 210 or if you can dip under that 210. I know that obviously we all know you got the ability for it and the speed for it, but running that type of time is not so easy, is it?
No, and it's not guaranteed at all. So again, I'll be focusing on the process, and I hope that the outcome, which is a natural byproduct of the process, I hope it'll be favorable. But you can't take it for granted. It's very fast, and I hope I can do it. I'll be putting in the work in order to do it. But yeah, time will tell. I've never ran that fast, so I think
Well,
I can do it. And yeah, as I said, I'll definitely be putting in the work necessary to run that time.
to be fair, you haven't raced that many marathons at this stage. So I think it's one of those elements where you're just going to continue to see improvements in your marathon journey until you start to get to that sort of pinnacle level where now it starts to get very difficult even just to improve by a couple of seconds over the marathon, which is exciting. I mean, there's still so much running ahead of you in your journey, and I think that matters for you in terms of the fact that you can be process driven. You don't have to have all these outcomes right now. You've got the time to really let just mileage and time over years do all the work for you. George, you mentioned durability. Now, what would be your plan if you were looking to improve on durability as a runner, and especially taking Comrades Down Run into account? What would be certain workouts that you would think of? And when you say durability, how would you attack that head on?
Yeah, so something that's extremely important when preparing for any race is specificity. Now, if you want to run a fast 800 meter, you're going to have to do 800 meter specific work for you to be able to sustain that pace over 800 meters. Now, likewise, if you want to, compete in the down run of the Comrades, you need to do the specific work required for a 88, give or take, kilometer race that is mostly downhill. So, to me, I want to say volume is very important, but that's not specific to the Comrades. So the type of work I will be doing is, you quite literally have to find long downhills and you have to run on those downhills for as long as possible. And even run race pace and things like that on those downhills, because you want to be simulating the fatigue you'll be experiencing in the race. So I'll be doing, downhill specific work in preparation for the Comrades. And then likewise for the marathon I'm targeting in October, I'll obviously have to be working on my VO2 max and my threshold and things like that, so that I can sustain a fast pace over 42 kilometers.
A nice example that I've been giving to some of my runners at this stage is, even if you are running on an undulating route, attack those downhills, attack the downhills, get comfortable with getting uncomfortable, and especially working on that downhill running form. It's so different to running uphill, and oftentimes our biggest form issues can actually be seen when we run downhill. Like the feeling, that sensation of pumping on the brakes, the overstriding that occurs, the holding back that we try to do when we run down a hill. All those elements are going to impact you when it comes to running down run, especially the fact that those downs come at a time where your body is already under so much strain. You've already done 40 kilometers and now you really start the fun part of the down run. The down run is always such a cruel race, and I'm sure you'll agree with that. based on your previous experience, I know that was tainted by the nutritional drama and not being able to actually get your fuel in. But it's a cruel race because you say to yourself, oh, once I get into Pound Town, it's really just going to be downhill from there. But what you tend to forget is that you've got no legs as well to actually run the downs. So I think part of it is going to be the specificity in the training that you're talking about. The other part of it is going to be trying to get that your hands on Stoner by John Williams and trying to get that motivation through from that particular element. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be a well-rounded athlete, and so reading about other people's experiences, it can even it can supplement your own, and it can help to make more sense as to why you're doing what you're doing, which is, I think, an important part of performance, is knowing why you want to perform. But yeah, in terms of the downhill or the down run, luckily in South Africa there are a couple of races that you can use as preparation. I think Elands and Kaapse are two marathons almost perfect for the down run preparation. I think it's net downhill. So things like that would be, those two marathons are perfect to prepare for the down run.
Yeah, absolutely. Elands, Kaapse, Vlakte, or doing a good old route test on the Comrades course when you're getting a little bit closer to it. But certainly, George, I think it's been interesting chatting to you before Comrades, of course, and then obviously chatting to you after Comrades with all the changes that have come into your life. You still are just the same humble person that you have become known to be, and it's wonderful to see how you just are still working on that particular process. Nothing really much has changed, and I'm excited to see where this next phase of your running journey takes you, and the fact that you're now also going to be opening up to assisting other runners along the way. It's just going to revolutionize things for you. I can only speak for my side of things, like being able to assist runners and also run my own goals. It just gives you a totally different level of fulfillment, and I'm really excited for you to sense that as well going forward in your journey.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, I'm excited as well. I'm obviously constrained by the time and attention I have, so I can't be taking on as many runners I would have liked to take on and help them. But I'll be taking on, call it 15, to give my full attention to those 15, and hopefully we can both increase the amount of knowledge I have as well as help the runner become a better runner. And that's
for sure.
That's powerful.
But also don't forget the influence that you have on the people that you're not directly involved with, So even just that example of me up Polly Shorts, I mean, you wouldn't have been better or wiser for it, but to me it made the difference knowing that you had won that race, So it's often the inspiration that you give others without really knowing that really makes a huge difference in other people's experience. And you really are putting yourself out there. So thank you again for being willing to come onto the podcast and chat to me today. And I wish you all the best. I'm happy to hear that the body is recovering well. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for that Amsterdam Marathon race. And then I'm sure that we'll be in touch closer to Comrades next year.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Making a Runner. I hope you enjoyed the episode and took something valuable away from the conversation. If you did, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your running buddies. It's really the best way to help more runners find the show and grow this incredible community. Here's to wishing you strong legs, clear minds, and all the joy this journey has to offer, wherever the road or trail may take you. And just remember, in running, like in life, it's not about perfection. It's about consistency over time. So just keep showing up, and I can guarantee you your best running will be ahead of you. Bye for now.